Rick, thank you for doing this. It's been too damn long, man. It's too long. I wanted to get good enough to have you on first.
Oh,
okay.
Please. I've been waiting for a long time for you to ask me on the show.
I'm scared, man. You're intimidating, dude.
Oh yeah.
You seen you?
Yeah, I'm an intimidating 150-pound fella, all right.
Yeah. So, no, well, I've had this idea of wanting to kind of get with the guys like yourself to tell this, this story of, the brands, the everything. You're a part of the curation of the motorcycle industry that my generation and others have enjoyed for the last 20, 30 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
it's and that's what we want to be. That's the position that we want to be in, because we were the guys before you.
Yeah.
We were you.
Yeah, exactly.
We were the guys that were doing, things that we thought were cool, and we were the guys that were saying, why is people doing it this way? What if we do it this way? You always want to do it different, I think, than your parents do it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in the motorcycle industry.
Yeah, the concept of basically taking your influence and what you've showed us how you've done it, and then through now my eyes and my generation's eyes, I have a version of you that's kind of, not polished, but like
Right.
just evolved, if you will,
No, I get it.
What so the thing about like you're a Dallas native through and through, right? Irving, Texas. Old Cowboys.
Old Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now you got your start in the paint world.
Yeah, so when I was 19, I had a DUI, and my great aunt and uncle, who I was really close with, owned a company called Roach Paint Company, and they made house paint. And they sold house paint to contractors. They were in Texas, a store in Oklahoma, and a store in Arkansas. And when I turned 19 and I got that DUI, my great aunt came and picked me up, and she said, I'm going to take you out and I'm going to buy you a suit of clothes so you can go find a job. Back then, if you went looking for a job, you wore a suit.
Yeah.
You wore a suit of clothes. So she picked me up, went and bought me a suit of clothes. We went out to lunch. She took me and got a haircut so I could get a job. And she said, let's go over and see Sarge. Well, Sarge is her husband that owns Roach Paint. Went down there, and Sarge said, why don't you come to work for me? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, how you going to get here? You don't have a car. You wrecked your truck. And I said, I'll figure it out, Sarge. And he threw me the keys to an old Chevy van and said, this will be your car to get to and from work. But there's one thing I want you to do for me before you come to work on Monday. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, go get a haircut. Well, I had just got one like an hour and a half before.
So he was getting rid of all your hair, huh?
And I looked at my great aunt, and she looked at me, and I looked at Sarge, and I said, yes, sir.
Wait.
And I went back to the same place and I said, can you take a little more off here?
What year was this?
This was 1976.
What was the, for people to understand, like, you and the culture.
What year were you born?
82.
Okay.
So
6 years before you were born.
Exactly. Coming off of, I think if I was going to say I missed the era I wish I would have, been maybe your age in,
Right.
is the 70s. Like, the music was amazing.
Yeah.
You're kind of, maybe it wasn't as so much angst in the air with, the Vietnam War kind of going away, or at least kind of dying off, if you will.
It was a swell time to be alive. And we didn't know any better, but with just the vibe of the world back then. The Vietnam War was still going, but it was closing out.
Yeah.
And that was like, now you turn on the news and it's the war they've got over in the Middle East and all that. Well, it was the Vietnam War like that led the news every night for years. And there were protests everywhere, but it was a wonderful time to be alive, because nobody limited you. You know, even as a teenager, my mom and dad would say, hey, do what you think's best. You know, do what you want to do. And, you know, I remember my dad coming to my brother. My brother and I are 11 months apart. We've been best friends our whole lives. My mom raised us as Irish twins. And my dad came, and my brother's one of the top attorneys in the country. And my dad came to us and said, hey, you boys will be old enough to start driving a car soon. So y'all want to get one together? You want to get 2 cars? You better start figuring that out.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, me and Rand want to buy a couple of motorcycles. And he said, he kind of chuckled and he said, what are you going to do when it rains? He said, well, we'll get wet. You know, we want motorcycles. We want our first car to be a motorcycle. So
what was the inspiration to do a motorcycle over a car, though?
Sarge, my great uncle, had a ranch out in East Texas, and he had horses and cattle and all that. But he also had a Honda ATC 90, which was a 3-wheeler, and he had something that was called a coot, which was like a Jeep kind of thing, and then he had a couple of motorcycles. So the first time I rode that motorcycle, it was just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what kind of started me on that path, was that.
Was there anything like culturally motorcycle related that was also maybe an inspiration, like whether movies or
I mean, of course, the movie Easy Rider came out, which was the coolest movie on the planet, you know, and then a few years later, On Any Sunday came out.
Yeah.
And that was just, you know, earth shattering.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was just it's hard to explain what the world was like, but it was a kinder, gentler place back then. And you didn't, you know, you hear the people say, well, you didn't have to lock your cars, and you could leave your keys in the ignition, and you didn't have to lock your front doors. We didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't. And when you went to your buddy's house, you just walked in. You didn't knock. But the thing is, what I tell people when they say, hey, what's going on in the Harley world? Well, in my opinion, the baby boomers like me were aging out. Yeah. And because I own Strokers Dallas, I see it every day. You know, we're selling people's bikes that aren't riding anymore. And I think about it as when we were kids, we rode a bicycle. And I don't care if you lived in Dallas or Cleveland or Alaska, all the kids of the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s had bicycles. And you rode that dang bicycle every single place you went, and all your buddies did. How many bicycles you see in your neighborhood now?
Yeah, it's definitely changed, yeah.
And the bicycles led to go-karts and skateboards and mini bikes and dirt bikes and Harleys. You know, that's the way it was for me. And now the kids are all tuned to their cell phones and their computers, and they're inside doing things.
Yeah, yeah.
So the world has changed.
Yeah, it's definitely got that vibe of, like, you know, obviously there was a lot of crazy shit going on that was kind of like there was a curtain pulled back in just the way we saw America. We didn't have the internet that was peeling back all that stuff, and, you know, you were able to just kind of focus on, like, the human experience that you have with your family, friends, and community, versus now we are sitting in our houses on our phones and seeing all this shit on the internet all day, and it just kind of puts a different taste in your mouth of society.
And that's cool, and I'm guilty of doing that myself. But it's different.
It is different, yeah.
We ate supper as a family every night. You knew at 6:30 we were eating supper as a family. You didn't go anywhere. Nobody came to your house. You ate supper as a family every night at 6:30. My mom and dad made me and my brother do the dishes. You didn't have a dishwasher for years. Can you imagine not having a dishwasher? You didn't have a dishwasher for years. Your TV was 3 channels, and there was no remote control. The remote control were Ricky and Randy. That was the remote control.
Go change it,
Go change it.
I remember
it sounds archaic.
Yeah.
But it was much better.
Yeah, there's a simplicity to it, right? And I remember, speaking of the dinner table, I just remember our daily routine was dinner, and then the TV was always on, because people watch TV differently back then than they do now, right? It was Little House on the Prairie, followed by A-Team, and then, you know, maybe you got like Wonder Years or something like that coming on right after it. So there was just like there was a vibe to that. You know what I mean?
You know what seems kind of funny now is, you know, the shows that you see on what's it called, Me TV or something.
Yeah.
You see like Gunsmoke and
Oh,
Leave
yeah.
It to Beaver and I Love Lucy. Those were prime time TV shows.
Yeah.
So that was our A team. That was our evening gathering, was to watch Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, later it started coming on in the mornings, but your primetime TV show was I Love Lucy.
Oh yeah.
You know, which seems funny now but that's as simple as that show was. That's how simple the world was back then. And you didn't know what they're doing in other parts of the world or other parts of town. You just knew your world was your little neighborhood right there.
It was, you know, the concept of being in a tribe or more communal or whatnot was so much more simplistic because you only had what's in your perspective, in your community and your school, your workplace. Like the world wasn't as big feeling as it does now, you know?
No, that's it.
So.
That's exactly the way it was. And it was, in my opinion, it was much better than it is now. The world now just seems mean.
Yeah,
A lot
for
of
sure.
meanness going on.
Yeah. So when did you graduate high school?
1975.
75. Man, that's as a big fan of 70s music, you got Leonard Skinner going hard right then and Pink Floyd kind of.
Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Man, what's it? My mom used to tell me, like, yeah, I saw Pink Floyd in concert. I was like, how? Like,
Yeah.
that's got, I mean, not that they're not still doing music now, but just to see them back then in their prime, little David Gilmour down there.
But you didn't know Pink Floyd was Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
You just knew Pink Floyd was, you know, a cool band that was, you know, at the top of the charts. You didn't know that they were going to be this iconic band that was still famous 40 years later.
It's always that, right? How do you know when you're actually living in history? You know, you just got to be present to it and just live it, you know?
You just got to live it. It's like the people that are going places and are taking videos and things. Well, that's cool, but they show, you know, like Tiger Woods playing golf, and all these people got their phones up recording all this. Then they got that one guy that's just sitting there looking.
Yeah.
That's the guy that's enjoying it, is
Yeah.
that guy. You can see all the other videos, but the guy that's sitting there watching Tiger Woods swing versus the guy that's doing this.
Yeah. You got to wonder if the guy that's videoing it, if the person that's videoing is doing it for some other reason than just being it. Like, I want to show other people that I saw Tiger Woods do, kind of like a, you know, feed into their whole existence or ego or whatever the case may be. But the guy that's just there is just absorbing the experience.
I think so. Am I close enough to this mic?
You can probably get a little closer.
Yeah, when you lean back, you're a little bit far away, but
Yeah.
that's a good distance.
I can't hardly sit still.
That's all good. But yeah, you know, going into the, like, so you did the paint thing for quite a few years though. That
20.
was 20 years.
I started in September 1976, and I retired in October 1996.
Damn.
And I opened Strokers Dallas, Easy Riders Dallas right then.
You know, next year, January, would be 20 years since I got a job at Gary's shop.
Really?
Yep. And so that I'm coming up on my 20 years in the motorcycle world and riding and all that stuff. So it's crazy to think that you started this empire at the age that I'm about to be, right?
Right,
Hit pause
yeah.
real quick. Or not, just leave it open. I can edit all that out. But yeah, you know, just thinking about it, it's crazy. So obviously you've been riding bikes the whole time. You like, you retire, what's, you know, what's the incentive to do to buy into the, did you buy into the franchise or did you just buy the place already kind of running? How does that whole acquisition take place?
When I had coming up on 20 years, Roach Paint, 8 years before, had sold out to Glidden. So all of a sudden we weren't, you know, a Texas-based 30-store company. We were a Cleveland, Ohio-based 1,000-store company. And it just wasn't fun anymore. You know, you had human resources people, You know, you had bosses that had been with the company for a year and a half that graduated college trying to tell me how to do things. And it was cool because when they bought us, Glidden bought Roach Paint because we kicked their butt. I mean, we sold more paint to contractors than anybody. And then, of course, once they bought us, the guy that was running it, he let me do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I said, you know, he came out and he said, Rick, have you heard any rumors? You know, what do you think about the acquisition? And I said, well, they're telling me you got to wear your hair short and you got to wear button-up shirts and slacks and all that. He said, you just do whatever you want to do. You wear a loincloth if you want to wear a loincloth. You just be you.
Yeah.
And that was great for 3 or 4 more years, and then he retired. And then it was then them coming in, and even though I was the #1 sales rep in the country, there was always, you know, somebody, another boss somewhere down the line that was trying to tell me what to do. So I remember sitting in my house with the TV on, and I'm flipping through Easy Riders magazine like everybody does. And I saw that, you know, they were opening stores, you know, and I saw, you know, every month I would look and I would think, man, I wish they would open a store in Dallas. And then I was flipping through one day and I saw a store in Austin. And I thought, oh, that's cool, you know. Why can't somebody open a store in Dallas so you can see parts from Arlen Ness and Pat Kennedy and some of those guys? Man, it would be so cool if somebody could open a store in. Why can't that guy be me?
Yeah.
Can I be that guy? You can't be that guy, Rick. You've got you've got a family in the same job for 20 years. You're making good money. You can't. Can I be that guy? Oh, I'm going to make a couple of phone calls and get it out of my system.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make a couple of phone calls just so I can tell my buddies, yeah, you know, I kind of looked into starting my own, and I made the couple of phone calls, and here I am.
And so what's crazy is that they had the ability to franchise these storefront things. What was the premise behind, what I'm trying to figure out the way to ask this question, but because what it is now is completely not what it was when you started.
Well, Joe Teresi started Easy Riders magazine.
Yeah.
And so he was, you know, it was in the glory days, and he was wanting to do a franchise to have Easy Riders stores. So obviously the stores were built around the magazine, and so you had to qualify to get a franchise. You had to go to their training class. You had to have a certain amount of money and all these things. So I set out, you know, made that phone call, and the girls I'm talking to on the phone in California, yeah. And then, you know, they set up a big call with Brian Wood, who was the head of the franchise deal. And first thing he says is, who's your partner? And I said, and I had my brother on the line. My brother's in Houston. My brother was on this call with me. And he said, I said, I don't have a partner. It's just me. And he said, Rick, you don't have enough money to do it. I'm looking at your financials. And I said, well, I plan to get an SBA loan. And he said, you're a long-haired white guy. You ain't going to get an SBA loan. And I strongly urge you to get a partner. And I said, well, I don't do partners.
Yeah.
And he said, well, then you don't do Dallas. We're going to keep looking for somebody in Dallas. You're not the guy. And I was pissed. I wanted to cry. And my brother said, Mr. Wood, you don't know Rick Fairless. If Rick Fairless wants to do something, by God, Rick Fairless gets it done. And he said, well, you pursue the SBA loan, but we're going to pursue other potential store owners in Dallas. So, you know, that's kind of how it started. And I just got roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and I went over them or through them or around them. And I just kept thinking, who's going to do better than me?
Persistence,
It was passion.
Yeah.
The whole thing was passion. I didn't sit there and tell my brother, hey, I'm going to open a motorcycle shop and make some money. It was passion that led me down there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this industry to me is an industry of passion. And there's a lot of guys that are in it that making a lot of money that aren't passionate about motorcycles. I couldn't be that guy.
Yeah. I mean, most people start in this industry with passion, but you know, if they don't stay connected to the bike, they can lose the passion, right?
Well,
So
that's true. That is the industry, or any industry that you get into for passion, can beat it out of you because it's a lot of work. You know, this industry is a lot of work.
So, you know, leading up to the idea of doing this, I mean, obviously you're picking up Easy Rider magazine. So what was your bike life like leading up to this acquisition or moving into that?
I had a 82 shovel head that I'd bought new, an FXE Super Glide. I had a 65 pan that I had bought from Jesse Brown, and I had a Triumph, a 61 Triumph that was my dad's. And you know, 30 years later, I still got all three of them.
Nice.
So I would go to bike shows. You know, back then I did a lot of bike shows. So I would take my pan and my shovel to the different bike shows. And, you know, I didn't have the money to you know, keep building bikes. So I had to kind of redo the ones that I had every couple of years. And so they've been through a multitude of configurations. But, you know, my 82 shovel head I've had for 41 years.
Yeah.
My 65 pan I've had for 37 years.
That's cool. Well, yeah, back in the 90s, I felt like you know you had the Easy Rider shows was going all over America.
Yeah.
There's probably other smaller events. I mean, it just seems like the bike thing was permeating like the whole craze that's about to take place in the early 2000s. It's just kind of like it's building, right?
Yeah, I think that actually started in the late 90s. And it started when Harley Davidson, they couldn't build enough bikes. And so what was happening was, you know, you'd go to the Harley dealer and you'd want to buy a new Fat Boy, and say the list price of the new Fat Boy back then was $6,000. And you'd say, yeah, I'd like to buy one of these new Fat Boys. And they'd say, okay, the price is $9,000. But it says MSRP is $6,000. Yeah, you want one, it's $9,000. You got to get on a waiting list, and it takes a year to get it. So then the guys like Sheldon Coleman that started Big Dog, and Tim Edmondson and Bill Rucker that started American Iron Horse, there was a need for a cooler bike than a Harley. You know, because I mean, I'm a Harley guy.
Same.
Harleys are nothing special in their stock form. They're cool, but everybody has one.
Yeah.
Used to be, not everybody has one anymore.
Exactly.
I wish everybody still. But the thing was to always take a Harley and start stripping it down and putting on parts from Arlen Ness and Pat Kennedy and Don Hotop and Donnie Smith and those guys.
Yeah, definitely. And that, I think that, you know, when you know, moving along a little bit further, like when I came into it, that's what I learned by being at Gary's and working, you know, because like I said, when I came into Gary's, that was, you know, you're walking in the door 2 days later, you know, with a frame for a build and whatnot. But yeah, that whole thing that Harley had going on where the waiting lists, I mean, I've heard that from multiple people about how that is what really kicked off the whole custom bike movement to the size that it became, you know?
You know, I think what happened was the baby boomers like me worshiped Harleys growing up. And so by the late 80s, early 90s, into the 2000s, the kids were growing up. Now you got a little bit of money. Now you can go out and buy a Harley.
Nice.
You know, so that's when Harley really took off. And, you know, I think that's the problem now is that those baby boomers are aging out.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's wonderful to see guys your age not coming in, but you're here and you're doing stuff, and hopefully it encourages younger people to also get into motorcycles. And I don't care if they ride a Harley or a Honda, you know, just get into motorcycles.
Yeah, most people, if you get on a motorcycle, you'll find your way to a Harley.
You will. That's
you
right.
know,
That's
it's kind of inevitable in most cases,
Yeah.
you know, but you know what I like about just hearing what you're saying right now is, you know, I think a lot of people my age or younger might feel like there's not enough time, right? There's not enough time to grow. And I feel like the way I've had to grow in this industry is by being kind of in the background a lot, and then slowly starting to step into the front, right? Which I'm still not there. There's still a lot of very knowledgeable people that are running this industry that I'm trying to soak up everything from,
Right.
Michael Lichter and people like that, So for me, it's like I want to learn everything these guys know how to do it. So one day when it is just me here, that I'm paying homage still to those before me, but also, like you said earlier, putting on another flavor that I think that our generation can bring to the table.
Yeah, but keep in mind, it's your generation's turn right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's, the older guys are kind of like me and Michael Lichter. I mean, we're doing our thing, and we do it very well. But you young guys are making waves, and don't. I think you're to the point. If you're in your 40s and you've been in this long enough, it's your turn to grab the thing by the industry by the throat and shake it, man.
Yeah,
it's your turn. We shook it.
Yeah.
We shook the heck out of this industry. Now it's your turn. I'm still shaking. It's your turn.
Yeah. So
I need some help shaking. You can grab the industry by the throat and shake it.
Come over there, help you out with it.
Yes, sir.
It seems like you got into the Easy Riders franchise situation at the right time. Like, right time, right place to kind of like be at the helm of, like, I mean, think about it. In Dallas, we've always had a very rich motorcycle community here in Dallas-Fort Worth, right?
Yep.
And I mean, obviously with Tim Edmondson and those guys doing American Iron Horse, I mean, that was a big place for the time that it was around. And seeing how like it quickly became a hub in the country for custom motorcycles and a part of this whole chopper craze that started to kind of sweep the nation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, and I like to think that I was a part of that chopper craze and all that in Dallas. I mean, it was, I don't know, it was, I think that at that time, that's what people wanted. Even if I didn't do the Easy Rider shop, I would have started my own shop. I mean, 2 years before I opened Easy Riders of Dallas, me and a friend of mine named Noah Langworthy, we decided we wanted to try to open a Harley shop. So I called Harley, and they said, there are no new dealerships opening. Where do you live? And I said, Dallas. And the guy said, I got nothing anywhere close to Dallas. I will send you a list of dealerships for sale, and, you can see if any of them interest you. So we went and visited dealerships from Dallas all the way up to Yuba, California, Yuba City, and back. And, we wanted to open a Harley dealer. And then the more I looked into it, if you're a Harley dealer, Harley controls everything. They tell you how everything's going to work, where you're going to put your displays, and it's too corporate for me.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to open a shop, but the Easy Rider thing just hit me at the right time. What if I didn't read the magazine that day?
Yeah.
Would I have opened it? I don't know. I don't. And my point was, I didn't want to just open a motorcycle shop. It was a motorcycle shop and a bar and grill. So people will come to a motorcycle shop if you hadn't been to one in a while, or maybe you're looking for a bike, or maybe you need a new starter. But if you got a bar and grill, they're coming every month, every week, every day.
Yeah.
The bar and grill brings people in.
So was that part of like an opportunity within the franchise, or was there enough leniency in buying into the franchise to have that? Neither? Okay.
So when I did the training for Easy Riders Dallas, I kept telling them that I wanted a bar and grill next door. So we did the training at the mother store, which is Easy Riders of Columbus. Joe Teresi himself came, and he stayed for a week in that class, so we got to hang out. And they had an Easy Riders cafe inside the store. And so that Easy Riders Cafe was basically a place where the neighbors in the neighborhood where the store was could come in there and eat a BLT and drink a Coke with chips.
Yeah.
And I said, and he said, Easy Riders, and I said, I want a bar and grill. Well, Rick, let's get the motorcycle shop going, and then we'll talk about all that. And then so I did, and then whenever I would talk to them about doing an Easy Riders Bar and Grill, they didn't want nothing to do with it. So that's when I started doing it myself.
And that's why did it carry the name Stroker's Ice House?
Yeah.
Before you ever changed the other one?
I went to Houston. My brother's a lawyer in Houston, and I went there, and we rode our motorcycles over to this place called an ice house. And they were everywhere. You know, there were ice houses everywhere. And I said, what's an ice house? And it was a place, I'm going to give you the original meaning of what the ice house is. So back when there were ice boxes, before there were refrigerators, when you got off of work, you stopped at an ice house and got some ice to take home to put it in your ice box to keep the thing cool.
Yeah.
So it got to be a gathering spot for men after work. They would pick up the ice, they would smoke cigars and chew tobacco and play poker and drink beer. So it was a gathering spot for the men. So I liked that, and I told my brother, I said, if I can ever get a motorcycle shop going, I'm going to have an ice house next door. Easy Riders didn't want no part of it, so I started it myself and beat my head against the wall for a year and a half till I got it open.
And so the property that you've been at the same property the entire time, right?
28 years.
Did you kind of like go into that with the intention of utilizing and growing into all the spaces, or how did that work?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I was a young man, that property was a boat dealership. And it's 2.5 acres right in the middle of Dallas. And at one time it became a bar called Garfield's. And Garfield's was kind of a cool place, but it was kind of a rough place. And I used to go there on Friday nights, you know, me and some buddies would ride our bikes up there and drink some beer and shoot some pool. And they closed down. And I always thought that would be kind of a cool spot for a motorcycle shop because it's got room to put a bar.
Yeah.
And I looked, when I was trying to figure this thing out, I looked all over. I wanted to be in Dallas County. I looked all over from Irving, where I live, but Irving was dry back then. And, you know, and you looked and said, okay, the money's in Addison. The money's in North Dallas. Well, Rick lives in Irving, and Rick didn't want to drive to North Dallas every day. Rick wanted something close, and I thought, okay, my ideal location would be Northwest Highway by Bachman Lake.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a cool place, and there were some places over there for sale, but they were not big enough. You know, I wanted something at least an acre.
Okay, yeah.
And so I kept going back to the old boat dealership, and it wasn't for sale or lease, and a landscape company owned it, and they were renting out just the very front of it. So I worked a deal with them, and you know, I've been there for 28 years.
Yeah, that's a good having the foresight to see, like, you know, to build into the property, if you will. Because I felt like you, over the course of time, like, you didn't get the entire property up front, right? You started kind of like carving out more and more space.
I had 7,500 square feet, and then there was a little machine shop next door, and I said, I want this 7,500, and I want this little machine shop. That's going to be a bar. And the guy said, well, you got to have a liquor license, and you're going to have to rezone and all that. And I said, I got it. I got all that. I can do all that.
Having a lawyer brother is probably very helpful.
I'm telling you. My brother was very crucial in me getting to where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, you know, I rented the deal, and he had, you know, you've been there, you know, all the different spaces and buildings and warehouses. All of those were rented by somebody else.
Okay.
And I'd say, when those guys leave, give me first shot because I want it. And I expanded into everything except where the landscape company was, his offices, and then he had that big warehouse where he kept his trucks and some of his plants.
And that's where you do the Punch Wally stuff.
That's right there. He had all that. And so after 7 or 8 years, I said, listen, you've told me for years that you will eventually sell me this property, that you're outgrowing it. I've been here, you know, this many years. Come on now.
Yeah.
And he came to me and he said, okay, we found a piece of property where it's a bigger piece of property where I can have all my trucks and everything in one spot. So he sold me the building and the property. And like I was telling you before we started, the price he was selling it to me for was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, I did it, and now, you know, what I thought was so high, now the price is a lot higher than that. So that's what you need to do. Find a place, pay the ungodly amount of money, and in 20 years, you're going to be thanking God that you did that.
Yeah, I need to do something.
Price of property ain't going down.
Yeah.
Whatever it is now, it's going up.
I got to learn how to make more money first, so... I live
do like me, just sign your name.
Sign your name.
Pay the bills.
I've got that whole mentality, like just getting a van and living down by the river kind of going on. That looks a lot more less stressful, and I can just stay riding motorcycles.
Well, I can promise you the river's crowded with hobos and winos down there these days.
Yeah, I'm not far away. I might be doing podcasts with them here pretty soon.
Hopefully not.
Well, you know, like you get into this shop, you know what I mean? You get this situation. How long did it take before you open the storefront to when the bar was able to open?
About 2 years.
About 2 years?
Yeah.
Nice.
Because I kept trying to do it myself, and I had a guy that worked for me that was trying to help me, and we kept struggling, and then a couple of customers, you know, that got to be customers at the motorcycle shop were helping me, and finally we got it done.
Nice. You know, it's a perfect spot. I mean, every time we have people coming in from out of town, I always want to bring them there because it's, you know, I've ridden all over the country, just like I know you have, and there's like only a few of these pocket style motorcycle centric places like your place, right? There's the place up in Maine, I think, that's kind of known for it. Forget the name. There's a place in Post Falls that you can actually ride through the bar.
Right.
It's pretty wild, but none of it has it. All of those still only have the aspect of we're a biker bar. We don't have all this other culture of this motorcycle industry culture that's wrapped up in it as well. You know what I mean? So I think that your bar is like a your compound is a truly unique experience for people. So that's why I want to show them that when they come to town, you know?
Well, it's a guy told me probably 5 years ago, he said that he lives in Wisconsin. The company he works for, his corporate office is in Dallas. He comes back to Dallas once a year for big corporate meetings. And when he does, he always comes to Stroker's Dallas and Stroker's Ice House. And he said, every time I walk in the door, it's like I'm walking back into 1969. Huge compliment for me.
Yeah.
Huge compliment for me. You know, but we try to be like a little bit of history, you know, when you've been to my place, I got pictures everywhere, and I like to document some of the history so that not only people in the industry like you can see and say, oh, look what they were doing way back then. Yeah. That people that maybe don't know anything about the motorcycle world can get a glimpse to what it was like.
But there's also, I mean, not even just the motorcycle stuff. There's just Americana just draped on every corner of the entire property. Yeah. You know, so.
I was telling my cousin's like my sister, and I was talking to her, and she was telling me that she said, you know, your brother's wife's birthday is coming up pretty soon. And I said, when is it? She said, November 22nd. And I said, November 22nd, that's a big day in Dallas, Texas. She's in California. And she said, what's November 22nd? And I said, in Dallas, Texas, that's when Oswald killed Kennedy. Yeah. You know, and I have some of that history preserved there. Yeah. I have the newspaper clippings that are framed on the wall. Not that it was a good thing, but that was part of our Dallas history.
Yeah, that's I used to live downtown, like right by it, and you know, being from Dallas, I've never actually just hung out there and went and saw.
Have you ever been to the museum? It's cool.
It is.
It's cool. And Lee Harvey was living in Irving, Texas, just a few blocks from where I raised my kids.
Nice. Yeah. Think you did it?
That was a whole. My wife was actually downtown when that happened. Her dad was an architect, an engineer downtown, and so my wife's mother and the two kids went downtown, had lunch with the old man, watched the president go by, waved to Jackie, got in the car to leave, and they heard all the sirens, and Kennedy was shot.
That's wild. That's I don't know. Every once in a while, like I follow a lot of different pages on Instagram that kind of go through and they do a lot of Dallas history and they find old photographs, and you'll see an old photograph of Parkland Hospital from how it started, and just that stuff's always been interesting to me, just to see
Well, that's your home.
Yeah, the growth.
So you should know more about the history of where you're from.
Yeah,
what hospital were you born in?
Methodist. So
too.
My grandparents owned a restaurant in Bishop Arts called Jeannie's Bishop Grill for about 50 years.
Okay.
And it was funny, I tell everybody all the time, but Bishop Arts now is kind of like this blown up. Well, they sold all that property. They owned all that stuff. They sold it in 2005.
Okay.
Jim Lake, I think, is the main guy that was doing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And now that whole area, it's like when I go over there, my wife works in the area, so we're there a lot. And I'm like, since I was a kid in the 80s, I'd be in that Hunky's restaurant right there, which used to be my grandparents' restaurant, eating chicken fried steaks and stuff. And now it's like, it's so different,
Well, it's kind of yuppie, kind of over there now.
It's getting there, but
what do they call the young people now?
Hipsters.
Hipsters, yeah, hipsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I dig it though. I like that. I mean, there's a couple bars in town like Ships over there that's been there for 50 years or something that I love, but there's also like newer bars that it's nice. It's like it's a nice area. It's got a little artsy vibe to it, but it can get.
Where do you live?
I live in Waxahachie here, so.
Okay. You're not too far from all that, from Oak Cliff.
Yeah, man. Growing up in Oak Cliff and Duncanville, and then most of my life I lived in downtown area in different like neighborhoods down there. And I moved out here in 19 right before COVID, and I couldn't tell you how thankful I am I did that. Right. It just was such a shit show in the city, and I'm starting to really appreciate the simplicity of things out here. Even though I wish we had more options for restaurants, but
well, you're 20 minutes away from any restaurant you want to go to.
Yeah, just fortunately we're 20 minutes away on the less traffic side of town, so it's not that bad. But like when you opened the Easy Rider franchise, was it more just like a storefront to be able to sell parts, or was there the aspect of having the shop behind it, or how did that kind of come into play?
Well, I mean, obviously Easy Riders was wanting to sell Easy Riders clothing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was meant to be a boutique.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a little store with lots of T-shirts and chaps and gloves and helmets, and it was meant to be just kind of an accessory store.
Yeah.
And if you had parts, that was good, but they didn't really help you with any of that.
Was there a big push for like drag specialties and things like that back in that time?
Custom Chrome was bigger than drag specialties back then.
Yeah.
So I went to they set us up with Custom Chrome, and I went to the Custom Chrome corporate deal, which was in Morgan Hill, California. Mm-hmm. And I spent like a week out there looking at parts and ordering parts, for my initial order and all that.
Were they already doing those kind of like kit bikes that they would sell where you could?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, that started a few years later. Mm-hmm. But it was, it was fast and furious. For years we carried Big Dog, American Iron Horse. Mm-hmm. And then my dad would say, you're selling a lot of bikes. What are you mainly selling? And I said, well, we're selling about 100 Big Dogs a year, and about 100 American Iron Horse a year, and about 100 used Harleys. Mm-hmm. We were selling, I used to tell people we sell almost a bike a day, which was phenomenal because you made pretty good profit off of it. And, now we're not selling anywhere near that, because you got no Big Dog or American Iron Horse, and Victory's gone. Mm-hmm. So you're selling used Harleys. Well, so's everybody else in the country.
Yeah. There's not a unique thing there.
It's not a unique thing there anymore to sell used bikes, other than who we are and where we're at. And you can come drink a couple of beers and eat a hamburger and buy a Harley.
Yeah, buy a Harley. Yeah, because I would say that with it being a boutique, like then you adding the ability to be able to be a franchise dealer, or not? I guess would it be a franchise dealer to your Big Dogs and your Iron Horse, or what? Or what?
Yeah, it was a franchise dealer, but that's what I didn't want to be, was a boutique. Okay. I did not want anything to do with that. I was a guy that loved choppers and kind of the hardcore stuff, and I didn't want anything to do with new Harleys, or I didn't want anything to do with the you know, the boutique look,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, the
Well, it
that
wasn't
thing.
too much longer that you. How did the transition of going from Easy Riders Dallas to Strokers Dallas? Because obviously, you know, that franchise thing kind of went away, right? Or
Yep. So we signed up in '96, and in 2002, Joe Teresi, you know, remember we had spent a week together,
Yeah.
so we'd gotten to be pretty good buddies. He called me and he said, "I want you to my house here in Fort Lauderdale tomorrow. I'm buying a ticket.
yeah,
You just get here." And I flew out there, and he lived in a multi-million-dollar house on the intercoastal, and it was beautiful. And you know, we spent a couple days there, and he was showing me, you know, he ran Easy Riders magazine from his boardroom. And he was showing me the covers and how you pick the different things and all that. And then he was showing me, you know, the franchise had got up to like 30 stores, I think. And he was showing me, he said, "Okay, look here, Rick. The guy opened an Easy Riders in Sturgis." And so he was showing me the picture of Easy Riders of Sturgis, the big sign, Easy Riders of Sturgis. And then painted on the glass in front of the store, it said foreclosed. And he said, "Okay, that guy's gone. That's my name. He didn't pay his royalties like he was supposed to, but that's my name on that sign. I got to hire a lawyer, get up there, pay somebody to take that sign down." And he said, "I'm spending more money than I am making." He said, "I got one franchisee that pays their royalties. You. Everybody else is hit and miss. I'm shutting it down. You got to change names or close." And I said, "Why don't you get rid of everybody else and let me stay Easy Riders?" And he said, "Everybody's got the same contract. I'm negating all the contracts." So I thought, oh my God, I'm sunk. You know, I'm sunk. And then I thought, I ain't sunk. What are you talking about? I ain't got all they gave me was a name.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so I'm Easy Riders Dallas, Strokers Ice House. Well, I'll be Strokers Ice House and Strokers Dallas.
yeah, yeah.
So I changed the name, didn't have to pay any more royalties, and never looked back.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And then
But
you
it was
have
scary.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because you're tied to this brand that you don't know how much that brand is actually helping or not, right?
Exactly. And that was the whole thing. I remember telling my dad, that name, Easy Riders, will bring every Harley rider in DFW in my store one time to check it out. And then it's my job and my staff's job to keep them coming back.
Yeah.
They're all going to come in there one time just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
So can I take that one time and turn it into a lifelong customer? I did.
Nice. And then, so this happened right around 2002, right?
2002.
Yeah, because like I said again, I came in 04, so this was already a Strokers Dallas thing, and you'd already had a plethora of bikes that you had built through the brand at that point, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were building bikes from day one. You know, I didn't get into business to you know, just be a boutique or just do service work or sell some parts. I wanted to build bikes. That was my passion.
Do you think a lot of the other franchisees were kind of just buying in and hoping that, you know, like a McDonald's franchise, like the Big Mac's going to sell, so I don't have to do anything?
Yeah, that's
and
what
you
they
were
were.
more innovative and more hands-on, had your finger on the pulse of what's going on and how to make this an experience for everybody coming in.
Exactly. And we even had a meeting, you know, we had regular meetings like every quarter. And one of the meetings we had there at Strokers Dallas, because the franchisees were not making money. And so they wanted them to see what I had done with the bar. So I remember I had a buddy in Houston and a buddy in Albuquerque that said they're going to open up a bar like mine. The guy in Houston got it. The guy in Albuquerque got it. The guy in Houston said, "Rick, I got a bar like yours, man. Come down. We're so proud of it." And they were my buddies. And I went down there. I went to the bar right next door to the store, And the first thing I see is a big sign that says, "Please wait to be seated." And I said, "That's not it.
Yeah.
There's 80 million of those please wait to be seated places. You don't want that.
Yeah.
You want a place where anybody can go, and it don't matter if they're Ross Perot or a cook. Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
You know, you come in there and do your thing, and as long as you ain't hurting nobody, it's all good. You know, you don't want the please wait to be seated and all that baloney. And it was, I told him, I said, "Did your wife do this for you? Did she, yeah, well, she was up," and I said, "It's not going to work."
Yeah.
And it didn't work. A year later, they were gone. I went to Albuquerque, and it was the same thing.
Yeah, that concept of like, say if we were going to Strokers, your place right now, and we pull our bikes into this place of like just freedom, right? That's what's cool about it. You come in those gates, you go in there and get you a beer, and then you can go out there and stand by your bike and maybe strike up a conversation with someone that's interested in your pipes or the model or
That's right.
whatever. And it kind of, trust me, the bike nights that I've created over the last 8 years that we've been doing, that premise is where that came from. Is like people want to be able, you know, not everybody has a personality, or not everybody has like the charisma to just go out and be the life of the party. So sometimes that guy with that Nest air cleaner on his bike, he's hoping somebody notices it and gives him a chance to like meet somebody and talk to them.
That's right.
And if you allow them to be by their bikes, then it opens up that opportunity for them to get to know other people.
And that was the whole thing, is to be a meeting ground where people can come meet their buddies, and they also meet new people.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of dozen weddings at Stroker's Ice House for people that have met there,
Yeah.
and then they wanted to get married.
Didn't
there.
Lobo met his old lady there a long time ago, I believe.
I think he did too, yeah. I haven't seen Lobo
I haven't
in
seen him in a while either, man. He used to be every time I'd walk in there he is, you know. He was a barfly
Well,
for
they
sure.
moved, him and his wife moved, I don't know where they moved. They moved somewhere, you know.
They used to live in Midlothian, but now I think they're further away now or something
I
like
think
that.
they are too.
But yeah, I remember all that stuff back in the day, and
But that's the point, is to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether they're an old guy or a young guy or a guy in a car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll see somebody and I'll say, "Where you been? I haven't seen you in a while." "Well, I sold my bike a couple of years ago." You don't got to have a bike to come to Strokers.
We did
you don't have to.
We did the pre-party for Born Free a couple weeks ago. Like, I felt like your normal date, your night crowd that drives up there.
Yeah.
We're like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are all
They
these
thought
bikes?
it was cool.
Oh, they did, because I
Yeah,
felt like we
no.
were taking all their parking spots with all the bikes.
No, they think that that's cool. You know, when we get a lot of people from all over the country or even all over the world that come out there. We had some people there yesterday from France.
Nice.
And the guy said, "Oh, Rick, you don't know how big you are in France." And I said, "I didn't even know you knew my name in France." He said, "Oh, yeah, we seen you on the TV or the magazines or whatever," which is very humbling.
Yeah,
Very
for sure.
humbling.
Yeah. Man, I remember, where would you say like your style of, obviously your style's all over the place, right? But at the same time,
I don't know about all over the place. It's
I'm talking
out
about-
there. It's out there.
I'm not going to say color. I'm going to say like your bike builds. If you look at the builds that's come out of Strokers Dallas, they have been everything from, you know, long and out there to, you know, pro street long and low. And
Right.
like, where do you think, I mean, do you have like a preference of like your favorite style of a chopper, or are you?
That's my problem, is I like a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, one of my favorite bikes to ride is my I call it the Susie Chopper after my wife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's a 28 over Sugar Bear Springer front end on it. You know, and it's just a great bike to ride. And as you're riding it, you know, it has that flex to it, those rigid frames, and the Springer have a...
Especially a Sugar Bear front end, huh?
Yeah, it's got that flex to it, and they ride great. But also, you know, I mean, I love the bobber style with the ape hangers, you know, a little solo seat and a shovel head motor and ape hangers. I love
That
a
one
lot
that I took a picture of you on the other day, that first one in the lineup, I think it's a...
Woodstock.
Yeah, that bike has got a nice little stance to it.
Yeah, so the Woodstock is a bobber with a pan head motor in it, and next to it is similar to it is the Janis Joplin tribute bike, which is a shovel head motor with ape hangers. I love that look.
Yeah.
And I love riding bikes like that.
Nice. What frames are those on there?
Paco.
Paco's,
You know,
nice.
and we used to be a frame manufacturer, but it threw me into a whole different insurance class. And then I thought, why am I paying all this money when Paco will make me whatever I want?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you call Paco and you tell them what you want, and they'll make it, and it's, you know, it's,
that was,
it's
you know,
a great frame.
The MSO and insurance thing was also one of the factors in pushing, like, killing kind of that manufacturing side of
Right.
custom motorcycles. Because
No, it
I remember,
did.
wasn't it like in Dallas or something, or in Texas, it was like you used to be able to do as many custom MSOs as you want, and it got down to where you can only do one unless you were a manufacturer or something like that.
Right, and then you can only do 10. And the insurance laws, you know, and insurance is tougher now than it's ever been.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting tougher
It's
and
'cause of
tougher and tougher.
There's no human anymore. It's all algorithm.
It's the whole world has changed. The whole world has changed. You know, it's like there's different angles. People are figuring out different angles to take things away from you, you know. So
Yeah.
it didn't used to be.
It didn't.
Like that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's gone until you forget that it's now not there anymore, right? It's like they're just shaving just a little bit off every day, and the next thing you know, it's the whole chunk is gone after 5 years. You know.
It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough to be a business owner. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I said a while ago, I got 2.5 acres right in the middle of Dallas. Man, that's awesome. Property's worth some good money. That's awesome. Guess what? How much my property taxes are? It's not awesome.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
just crazy.
Yeah, it's the whole concept. There's no get rich quick thing. It's all as you move up, like especially, you know, I guess my generation, as we move up, it feels like we're always 5 steps ahead or behind, like the I guess the economy and all that stuff. Where now we have, you know, we have a lot of opportunity now with social media. It kind of opened up for our generation to be able to market and advertise a lot easier and get our name out there.
Right.
But we don't necessarily have the same opportunity. Like, I wouldn't say that opportunity. It's hard to sell $100,000 bike these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, those customers are few and far between.
And those are customers that you've mainly had for years.
Yeah, most of those are customers that know who you are.
They
and,
trust you when they go to do business with you. They know that they're not getting fucked around. Like,
yeah.
that's something that you earned through the course of your career.
Well, you paid your dues to get there.
Exactly.
You know, you've worked hard to get there, but that's where that whole passion comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to get in the motorcycle business, but you ain't passionate about it, don't
Your
drive
ass.
a truck.
Yeah, it's easier.
Don't do it.
Just cash that check, buddy.
Yeah.
And enjoy motorcycles on the weekends.
Yeah, that's, you know, it was motorcycle on the weekends was pretty dang good when I was working 5 days a week, you know.
Yeah.
Now I'm working 8 days a week, and it's still my passion, but it's a business too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so when did the concept of like the whole hamster community start to kind of interest you, and you want to be a part of that world and whatnot?
Early 80s.
Oh,
you know,
that long?
Yeah,
Damn.
when I first started, when I bought that Shovelhead new in 82, you know, and you start customizing it. Well, the hamsters were, you know, had some of the coolest motorcycles on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were FXRs, you know, and that was kind of the style that I built my bike after.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we'd go to Sturgis and you'd see the guys in the yellow shirts and they'd be like, hey, who's that guy? See that guy down there? Let's go outside and see what he's riding. I bet we can pick it out, you know. And it was just we always looked up to the hamsters.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the fact that I've been a hamster for 25 years now is something pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you were gonna, you know, back while you were still selling paint, you were still kind of attending things like Sturgis and stuff like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, so my first year in Sturgis was 87. And so I've been every year, which I think is 34 years or something, 36 years in a row.
Nice.
I've been to Sturgis. I've never missed one.
I started in 14 and I missed one in 18. It's just a rough year, but that's it.
Right.
I've always told people, I actually did a little interview with Lichter yesterday about Sturgis, and I told him, you know, like, I want to go to Sturgis every year for the rest of my life. And you know why? I don't know. It's like it doesn't change, but everything changes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's you know, it becomes like your second home. You know, being up there all those years in a row, I know all the cool places. Now, like you said, everything changes, but nothing changes. You know, I know, okay, when I get up there, I'm gonna do the hamster thing, and I'm gonna do a lot of charity rides, and I'm gonna do a lot of industry stuff, and it's just a very chaotic week that I look forward to every year.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, I mean, me and my friends, we'll sit here after 5 years of riding the country together and be like, man, we did this.
Yeah.
I can imagine after being in the hamsters, being with these groups of other men and whatnot, to sit there on Hamster Hill and be like, man, you remember when we started here?
Yeah.
Remember we got our chance to come be a part of this? You know what I mean?
And you know, one of the cool things about it is that, you know, now my daughter's old enough to where I ride with my daughter in Sturgis, you know, so that's a cool thing that Lena gets to go with me and gets to experience some of that. But, you know, just to think and recall that, you know, that I've got to ride side by side with Arlen Ness blasting down the highway. You know, we did the Love Ride one year.
Nice.
Which was, you know, I did that like 3 years in a row, and that was a big deal back in L.A. at the time. And, you know, so the hamsters had a big deal, and we would have these rides building up to it, and we'd go on the Love Ride, and I'm blasting down them L.A. freeways side by side with Arlen Ness.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It doesn't get much cooler than that for a kid that loves motorcycles.
I told this story a million times, but I met Arlen the first time in Cincinnati at the V-Twin Expo.
Right.
And we were at that hotel that was connected to the I guess convention center, and we were walking in from being out, and he was sitting at the bar, and I was like, I got to go say something to this man, like, and I had no fucking clue what to say.
Right.
It was the most. On his end, he played it real cool, but on my end, I was like, dude, what the hell do you say to the guy? I was like, hey man, I just want to meet you, and I said, do you got any advice for a young guy getting into the motorcycle world? He goes, he sips on his drink. He goes, batteries and oil changes, buddy. And I'm like, all right, man, a few words, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? And, you know, here we are, you know, like his brand, and it's grown the way it has, and, you know, yours as well. And it's like those batteries and oil changes are the things that everybody needs no matter where they're at in motorcycling, right? Yeah. So
batteries,
it makes
oil
sense.
Changes, and tires.
And tires, yeah. So
those are the things. Yeah, I mean, I was the same way. It was in 1987. I was at my first year in Sturgis, and I was on Main Street, kind of leaning up against the building. And I used to always I either wore Arlen Ness shirts when I was out of town. I wore Arlen Ness shirts or Pat Kennedy shirts.
Yeah.
And I was wearing an Arlen Ness shirt, and a guy came up and he said, hey, nice shirt. And I looked down, and I'm wearing an Arlen Ness shirt, and I looked up, and it was Arlen Ness. So I talked to him for probably 5 or 6 minutes, and he said, where do you live? And I said, Dallas. And he said, I sell a lot of parts in Dallas. And I said, they're to me. I'm buying a ton of your parts there.
Yeah.
And he was so nice, and he invited me, you know, if I ever come to California, come visit his shop. And a few years later, I went to visit my cousin in Northern California, and I said, hey, I'm going to take this next day and drive down to Arlen Ness's shop and look around. And I did. Arlen was there. Corey was there. They gave me a tour, and, you know.
Were they in the spot that they're in now?
No, this was years before that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, when you grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and, you know, you're a young man raising kids in the 80s, Arlen Ness was our Elvis.
Yeah.
He was our Beatles, you know. I mean, he was the king. You know, and to this day, people, you know, I gave a tour the other day to some people from Kansas, and they said, is it okay to take pictures? And I said, there are no secrets. Anything we're doing now, Arlen Ness did 40 years ago. There's no secrets in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. Now, that's, I mean, just the history from up there, just, you know, I've got the opportunity to paint a lot of bikes up there in Northern California, and his presence it rings on in the whole, in the soil there, to be honest with you. And, but, you know, like I'm a custom motorcycle fan. Like, I like a good Harley as long as it's got something custom on it. I don't like factory stuff, and that's all. That's a lot of that's curated through working with Gary and working on bikes like you have, and being around the culture. Like, when I got into this industry as a wet sanding parts, I I remember it wasn't 2 weeks or 2 months after starting at Gary's, there was a film crew in there for Biker Build Off.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, how did I just get into the middle of the motorcycle mecca in Dallas, Fort Worth? And I don't know that if I wouldn't have had that job, and that job particularly at that time, that would have imprinted on me enough to stay here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, everything in your life leads you to a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, had you have gone to work somewhere else, you know, you might have been the world's best printer.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know. But, you know, everything you do is leading you down a road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you think, okay, so when I open the motorcycle shop and I get, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people a week come through there, what happens if I never open that shop?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, those people that got married, they wouldn't have met each other.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the things that have happened to people, you know, what would happen if I wasn't there?
Yeah, it's
You know,
kind of like a vicarious influence to people, or you know whatnot, or giving people an opportunity to create shit for themselves. You know.
You know, I do this show on YouTube and on my Facebook channel called In My Life, the 365 Project. And I try to keep it between 9 and 10 minutes. And so it was called the 365 Project. You know, on January the 1st, I said, I'm going to do this show every day for a year. And after a month into it, I thought, am I crazy? I'll never make it a year, but I'm committed to it. And so I've been doing it every day, and people tell me, oh, you know, I love the show, and oh, I listen to it every morning and all that. So the last few months I've been thinking, you know, because people are asking me, are you going to continue it? You know, it's part of our daily routine. And I didn't know. I don't know if I'm going to continue it. And then yesterday afternoon, and I did a show on it this morning. Yesterday afternoon, I got an email from a guy that said his wife, 2 weeks ago, his wife was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer. And, you know, they've got a lot of things going on in their lives. He listens to my show in the morning when he's drinking his coffee, and that's his escape.
Yeah.
Is listening to the show where he can, you know, I do a bunch of motivational stuff on there, but also throw in some humor and stuff. And he said between that every morning and he comes to Strokers like on a Sunday afternoon, he said that's his escape from reality. That's my sign that I'm going to keep doing the show, you know, for another year.
And I mean, no matter like what the content of what you've kind of put out thus far, I mean, you could easily just pick one picture up off the wall and
talk about
10 minutes about that experience.
Yeah.
You know, and there's this guy, I don't know if you know about him, his name's Scooter Tramp Scotty. He's been living on his motorcycle since 92 or something like that. Used to do some write-ups for Easy Rider. And on YouTube, he lives on his bike. He has an old electric glide. He travels all over the country, kind of does the rally circuit, goes south for the winter, north for the summer.
Right.
But he has like this deck of like photographs, you know, that he's had for, you know, his entire, not a lot, but you know, if you
what does this guy do for a living?
He'll go change tires at a rally and make enough money to go stay in his campground. And
so that guy is living his version of the American dream.
Exactly. Now, what I love about this one particular video he did was he pulls these photos out of like, almost like, kind of like that, just a little binder thing he has. And he just goes and talks about, oh man, that chick, I talked to him before. He's like, yeah, 3 months in a relationship, and then I'm out, I'm back on the road, you know. But he'll talk so passionately about that experience with that person for that 3 months or whatever the case may be, and or that a guy he met that he rode some miles with. And I find those stories to be so much more refreshing in a world full of like, look at me on the internet kind of thing, right? And so
that's the whole thing is, you know, do your thing.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy. You know, if other people enjoy it too, you know, that's awesome. You know, my thing is I love the business that I'm in. I love the motorcycle industry. You know, could I have made more money doing other things? Probably. Probably. But, you know, I was tired of that 9 to 5 grind, working for somebody else and having to, you know, take orders from people that I didn't respect.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
a big thing.
Working for people that you actually respect is a big thing. Yeah. The you know, the whole biker build-off thing, that's one thing that in our world still people miss that. But what was it like being in it, like being a part of that, like seeing that kind of come to life and then being able to be on it? And, you know, I mean, I know my perspective from that very small part of what I saw behind the scenes, very, very, very naive and very ignorant to it all. But with you actually, you know, this was like your, you know, this is your big time to get out there and.
Yeah, it was. And that's what you thought, you know, you would see the biker build off with Indian Larry and Perowitz and Billy Lane and some of those guys. And obviously Jesse James kind of got that whole thing started with the Motorcycle Mania.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. And then you would think, you know, will my phone ring?
Yeah.
Will my phone ring? And it's like, okay, you know, maybe it'll ring. And if it does, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, that's awesome too. And then, you know, that phone call comes and you have a meeting with you and they tell you got 10 days to build a bike. And so I had a meeting with my guys, and I said, you know, we're going to do this. And the guys said, boss, is it just 10 days? Is that what you have? And I said, no, that's not just 10 days. Oh, well, they say 10 days on TV. And I said, it's not 10 days. It's 10 days and 10 nights.
Yeah.
So, you know, you had 10 days and 10 nights to do something, but they give you a little time, you know, from the time they say you're going to do it.
Yeah.
You got a little time to kind of start
Yeah.
sorting out parts and thinking this is what I was going to do. And in my case, I didn't want to do another Harley. I thought I got this Triumph basket case that I bought from my buddy over at Big D Cycle. Why don't we do a Triumph? I love Triumphs. You know, why don't we do a Triumph? So we did a Triumph.
How did the world take the Triumph thing? Do you think it was kind of like a,
you know, that was kind of the start of the social media and all that, and you know, so I got a lot of emails and things, and you know, people loved that I did a Triumph and that I did something different. But I'll never forget one guy. You know, social media can be mean.
Yeah.
And one guy said, I've been watching the biker build off for a couple of years and praying that somebody would do a Triumph, and finally somebody does it, and it's that dumb hippie Fairless that had to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the bike, I actually worked on that bike. You know, I worked with Gary. We molded the frame and everything on that one.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, like, I didn't know. You know, I'm like I said, I'm 2 months into the whole motorcycle world. I don't know the fuck a Triumph versus a Harley. Like, Gary had a Hayabusa that it was the coolest thing in the world to me at the time. You know what I mean? So that was like, I want to ride that thing, you know. And I was 21 years old at the time, right? So, but doing it, and then I remember sitting at Strokers when the thing aired.
Right.
We all had that big table. And we all sat at it, and that was like. I mean, like I said, man, back then to be on TV was a much different thing than it kind of feels like today. You know,
and that whole TV thing has changed. You know, back then, you know, there weren't social media stars.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't. Don't tell me. I know a couple of them. Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Isn't he like a gazillionaire kid?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then there's the Dude Perfect and all those guys. Well, there weren't those guys back then, so your focus was to do something on the Discovery Channel or the Speed Network back then and things like that. So to be able to do a biker build-off on the Discovery Channel was pretty huge. But any of whatever your favorite reality TV show is, it ain't real.
Yeah.
It's not real. Everything is amped up. You know, like if the Discovery Channel is filming this ain't what they want to see. They want to see a bunch of yelling and cussing and me throwing that Dr. Pepper bottle across there and you saying, I'll run you. You know, they want to see action. And that's not what life really is. But, you know, so if you're going to do TV back then, you do it their way.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the way that I wanted to do it. That's why I like social media better, what I'm doing on social media better, because I can do it my way and my story. Yeah, and I'm not the yeller and the screamer. And then in the biker build-off, you know, we did a coffin gas tank, and you know, built one of my guys in the fab shop, and I told them exactly what I wanted, and they handed me the shell of it, and it was way too small. And, you know, and I'm telling the guy, come on now, this ain't one of, and the guy said, Rick, amp it up, sling that gas tank across the floor. And I said, I would never do that. And they said, Rick, sling that gas tank. And I said, okay. So I slung that gas tank across. That ain't Rick Fairless. I ain't slinging nothing. I'm not a yeller or a screamer.
Yeah, the whole concept of doing that, though, I mean, think about like how that makes that the fabricator look. You know what I mean?
Right.
In hindsight, you know, it might be his only time to ever be on TV, and now he's, you know.
I know, but they knew what was going on. They were part of all that too.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a cool time to be in the industry, and the industry really took off. Mainly, like I said, because the baby boomers, their kids were getting grown up, and now they had more money than they've ever had before, and they were buying Harleys and customizing Harleys, and the biker build-off thing, you know, really took off, and it was a fun deal to be a part of.
Yeah, if you really like go back and dive into like the first motorcycle manias, and then the start into the actual build-off series,
right?
It seems like as they went down the line further along, they tried to make it more outlandish and more American Chopper.
Absolutely.
Because American Chopper was obviously working very well, but it's like for us people in the industry, I've always said, and of course I'm not on TV or even making TV shows, but I've always said there's natural problems that arise, and if you're in a shop, you're going to see them, but you have to have cameras rolling kind of like 24/7 versus, you know, you can't the fake stuff doesn't come off real, right? The real problems are kind of more harder to deal with, actually.
Well, and those guys are very well trained, so they would be whatever we're working on. You know, they've got 2 or 3 guys with each person. You know, so they're in the fab shop, and now, you know, I took them over there to Gary Queen's in the paint shop, and you know,
what do you want to do on the dog tags?
Exactly.
That's his.
You know, just
that's his
stuff like
lines.
that. Stuff like that. You know, I mean, they're there, and they're real good at drawing out action, or they're real good at making things happen, or, you know, so.
But it was a like I said, if those experiences for me didn't take place, if I didn't get a chance to do that, if you didn't do that, I don't know that
you wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yes,
and neither would I.
So it's kind of it's kind of a surreal thing to be, you know, just to kind of take that into consideration, if you will, you know.
I know. I mean, if you think about things like that, life can get pretty deep.
Yeah.
Life can get pretty deep. You know, if this wouldn't have happened, you know, if I wasn't reading the magazine that day, would I still be working for Glidden Paint? Probably.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So I remember I know everybody wants to know when did the tie-dye thing take hold?
Yeah, you know, when I first left Glidden Paint and I opened my own shop, I dressed like I was working still for Glidden Paint.
Yeah.
You know, I wore a button-up shirt with the Easy Riders logo on it, and I wore cowboy boots. You know, I was big into cowboy boots for a long time. And then finally I just started thinking, you know, why don't you just be Rick Fairless?
Yeah.
You know, so I always loved tie-dye, but it was never my thing.
Yeah.
It was just something I liked, but, you know, I couldn't wear it much because I was working all the time. So I started doing a line of tie-dye shirts, and I really liked it, and I would wear them, you know, not every day, but a lot. And I did a show. I was on a thing called the Easy Rider Centerfold Tour.
Okay, I remember that, yeah.
So the Centerfold Tour at one time was me, Billy Lane, Indian Larry, Dave Perwitz, Paul Yaffe, you know, some of those guys, Chica, Ron Finch, and I went and did a show in St. Louis, and my wife, Susie, forgot to pack me some tie-dye shirts. So I had the tie-dye shirt that I was wearing, and then when I got there on Saturday, you know, I didn't have a tie-dye shirt, so I thought, okay, well, I'll just wear my black stroker shirt. I thought they were going to lynch me.
For real?
They were like, where is your tie-dye shirt? Oh, my God, Rick, I'm so disappointed, you know. And it was, I told my wife, I said, I can never forget those tie-dye shirts again. And then I would wear it, more often. Lady came in one time, took a picture. She said, I'm only disappointed by one thing. And I said, what? She said, you're not wearing a tie-dye shirt. And I said, it's Tuesday. I don't wear a tie-dye shirt every single day, but for the past 20 years, I do. I wear a tie-dye shirt every day.
What do you think that's like people? Okay, you're a symbol of the motorcycle culture and industry, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that a lot of people on the outside probably look at the tie-dye shirt as some kind of symbol of separation from the corporate America, like a little bit more freedom to be individuals?
The people my age do.
Yeah.
It was tie-dye is something that I've always been comfortable in. You can look at my bikes. I love the use of color and the art of colors. Mm-hmm. And people my age look at it as, kind of a rebellion, kind of a hippie thing. But with this social media, I get a lot of, oh my God, the guy's gay, or, the gay rights and all that. Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with the gay rights and all that stuff. That's not me.
Yeah.
That's not why I wear these, but a lot of the younger people associate the use of color with gay pride.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine, but that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think that anybody that taps into any of the culture, especially, the music culture from the era that you're kind of representing, if you will.
It's the psychedelic kind of,
Yeah.
And we didn't really think of it as so much tie-dye back in the day as we did psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a multicolored psychedelic, lava lamps, black lights. When you would go to the concerts and behind it would be, like a lava lamp with colors and all this psychedelic, and, that was kind of the vibe, and I loved that vibe. I never was a drug user.
Uh-huh.
I've had physical problems all my life, so I never could use any kind of drugs, really, other than prescription drugs. So
the worst ones?
probably.
Yeah, it's all good.
But it's tie-dye's just my thing. And other people in the industry, if you've noticed, there's never been anybody else that's copied it, because that's got my stamp on it. They know that they would be copying me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's a good way to kind of like tie into your personality and the things that I think that you find important in culture. Like I said, all the bikes that are kind of paying homage to, Pam, right? Yeah, Pamela Anderson, born in, what was it, Summer of Love?
Yes.
The whole you have these bikes might look like tie-dye colorful things, but these bikes that you've done over the years have so much story connected to them in the paint.
Right.
Hell, the victory that's on the stand when as soon as you walk in Strokers, like
the cartoon bike.
That thing's badass.
It is badass, and and you're talking like a $20,000 paint job, for something like that, because it takes months and months and months of airbrushing.
Yeah.
And when Sissel, that works for Queen, would be airbrushing it, I would go over there every day. My wife and I would go to lunch, and I'd say, let's stop over at Queen's. I want to see what's, and they'd be doing. And I'd say, Wiley Cody's not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be over here on this side, and he's chasing. Where's my notes? And it was like, you got to get it right, and that's the thing about Queen and Sissel and Tim and those guys is, I've been doing business with them for so long, they're in my head. They know what I want.
Yeah.
So it makes it so easy. Could I change painters and find other good guys? No. Yes. Do I want to? Never. No, well, those are my guys.
What I learned in that time frame, and it's kind of different now for, I think, younger shops, because I think what Other Side Customs and Sissel and those guys do, they have a very wide range of the styles that they can achieve with their paintwork, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of they can do everything.
They can do everything.
When
Tim too,
Tim.
Tim's awesome too.
So when you as a brand that are selling paint jobs a lot, not just the ones that you want, but you have other people coming in, you want to be able to have that relationship with a paint shop. Right. They can handle all these different tasks.
And, I think that's one of the things that may have limited me is people think that I only do those psychedelic paint jobs. That's just a small portion of what we do. You know, we do that when we're doing something for me, or if a customer is brave enough to let me run wild with
Yeah.
their bike, then I'll do something
Yeah.
like that. But you know, I mean, we do a lot of just
Your
regular
normal
paint
stuff.
jobs.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of, like, for me, kind of separating myself from, if I wouldn't have had that foundation of working for a guy like Gary and being, I say forced, but not saying in a bad way, but being forced to one day do a Dragon and the next day I'm doing a Pirates of the Caribbean, the next day I'm doing Flames.
Right.
It makes you learn how to
It
do a lot of
does.
different stuff. Now, where I'm at now in my life, I'm more like, you know what? I like just doing this, and I just want to offer this. It's like a tattoo artist. Like, some people just want to be black and white artists. Some people just want to be traditional style
Right.
tattoos, and some people want to do it all. And I kind of want to be the master of one instead of all.
Right. So what are you the master of?
None. It's
None of us are.
Yeah.
None of us are. You do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and I feel like when I know that I'm happy with something that I created, I think that comes off to the customer as well, and it makes them feel like they got something that I'm truly proud of.
Right.
Which I think is what, you get to a certain point in what you do and create, that I think that's what they really want. They want a piece of Rick Fairless's, like, something that he's proud of.
Right.
They want a bike built by you that like, man, you love this bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and that's I've got people that want to buy my personal bikes, and I've actually sold a few in the last 5 years, because I have so many, but
You have one that you just kind of wish you can get back in the stable?
there's a couple.
Yeah.
There's a couple that I've sold that, I'd like to have.
My
but
favorite tattoo bike.
still got it.
You still got it?
Still
Okay.
got it,
That's my favorite.
Yeah, I rode it. My future son-in-law rode it some in Sturgis, So, yeah, that's one of the bikes that I'd never sell.
Yeah.
I probably have a dozen of them like that I'd never sell.
That one just, I mean, the paint job alone, which, just Vince Goodie did that one, right?
Yeah.
That paint job alone, and then on top of that, just that stance. Before you got here, me and Matt were just talking about how, like, we're super drinking the chopper Kool-Aid right now. So it's
Right.
like,
Good, it's coming back.
Yeah, I believe it is, but I just like that. I like that stance of it. And same thing. It's like, I think the Coors bike had a similar stance, but obviously had the custom tanks.
Right.
And there's something about that look that I'm kind of in love with right
Well,
now.
it's that chopper look, and to me, it's a timeless look. And at this point in time in history, I think it's making a comeback.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, there's been a big movement of the vintage chopper world over the last, like, 15 years, kind of in the underground thing that's kind of
Right.
becoming popular. But the guys that were like what you guys were doing in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think that's starting to come back because it's different now. It's different now that
Right.
it's the same as it was then, but it's different now.
Well, the whole bagger thing just never was my deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got a couple of baggers with 26s on them that I've ridden all over the country. And Lena's fiance has a bike with a 30 on it. And, we did the Kyle Petty charity ride, and he rode that bike the whole time. They're just not my deal.
Yeah.
To me, those big wheel baggers, they all have that same look. Some got a 30 and some got a 32, but they all have the stretch tanks, and they've got the side panels that curve out and the stretch bags, and they just all have the same basic look. And then when you start filling them up with speakers and your stereo system and all that, and that's your form of enjoyment, is cranking that music up, that's not a motorcycle to me.
Yeah.
But people look at my stuff and they shake their head too, so I get it. But it's just, I've never been into that bagger deal.
Yeah. Well, what you just said is something that makes sense, right? The bagger is kind of like you're stuck in a box. Like you really only have a few ways of changing this shape, when a chopper can literally almost morph into any shape that you can imagine.
Yeah,
that still sticks to two wheels. You know what I'm saying?
You can, and the guys with the baggers they're doing their thing, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You know, but it's just I don't know. It at some point it's still a motorcycle, and if you got the bags and you got the pizza box on the back and you fill all that stuff up with speakers.
Yeah.
Why do you have that?
Yeah.
Why do you do? What are you doing? It's what it's not. And the guys that are building them are doing some cool stuff. And guys, my buddy like Paul Yaffe makes a lot of cool stuff. Now the performance bagger that's getting more and more popular, that's a cool deal. I like the performance baggers.
Yeah, I mean it's still functional, right?
It's still functional.
But same thing. Like I feel like no matter what, when that I think that what we're dealing with right now in the air quotes performance bagger world is like some of us have already had 3 or 4 of these bikes in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And we don't really know how to do anything differently now because there's kind of a restraining box around it that kind of keeps I guess it's going to require a more creative mind to come into it and shake it up.
Well, that's what guys like Paul Yaffe make their living on is doing different things on the baggers and selling different parts.
Yeah.
We got into the parts business for a while, and we were a Victory dealer, so I was making custom parts for Victory. And we had a bunch of parts that were in production and a bunch of parts that we were working on designing. And Polaris pulled the plug on Victory, and that killed all that. I mean, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in time and product,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was kind of a
And
kind
that,
of a messed up deal.
You were a big proponent of the Victory thing, the whole movement of that. And then they seemed to, as soon as they started to have legs, it seems like Polaris pulled it and then dumped all the money in Indian to try to capture to, I guess, a heritage or something that they might have already had.
What they told me was that, when they bought Indian, they had two motorcycles going after the same customer. That the Indian and the Victory had the same target audience. So their thought process was, since Indian was a bigger name than Victory, take all the Victory resources and pour all that into Indian. And they did, and it hurt a lot of people. And there's still a bunch of loyal Victory guys out there, but there's a bunch of loyal Indian guys. And I was part of the original Indian design team at the time. And they talked to me about being a dealer, and I was interested. And they came out, and they wanted me to put a facade on the front of the store and put in a wooden floor and a drop ceiling and make it look like the boutique. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And the guy said, Rick, you realize how much money you can make, if you get on the ground floor of this Indian thing? And I, like I said earlier, I said, I didn't get into this thing to make money.
Yeah.
I didn't think, hey, I'm going to open a motorcycle shop and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I'm going to open a motorcycle shop and build some cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do.
Get to be around bikes all day long, and maybe I can pay my bills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Was that Indian dealership open down the street when you opened your the first Easy Rider spot?
No.
Okay, because that came and went. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to know the story of that?
Yeah.
So that guy's name was Brian, I think, and he owned a motorcycle rental business during the heyday.
So kind of like what Eagle Rider does?
Kind of like what Eagle Rider, only on a smaller scale.
Okay.
And he was down, he was 3 or 4 miles from Strokers. He was down over off of McKinney and all that. And he called me one day and he said, hey, I rented a building right down the street from you on Harry Hines. And I said, oh, good. And he said, so when people come in to rent a bike, I'll send them to your place to buy some gloves or a helmet or eat a hamburger and drink a beer. He said, it's going to be awesome. And I said, that is awesome. A couple of weeks later, some guy came in and he said, hey, Rick, what's that Indian dealer down the street? And I said, Indian dealer? This was before Polaris owned it.
Yeah, this
was the Gilroy Indian. And he said, and I said, there ain't no Indian dealer down the street. And he said, big sign says Indiana Dallas out in front of the building. So I went down there. Big sign says Indiana Dallas. And I go in there and I said, Brian, what's going on?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? He said, oh, Rick, I'm just renting motorcycles. Indian said, they would give me some bikes for the fleet, but I had to put their sign up. He said, we're not going to do, we're no competition to you. I said, okay. It just seems kind of funny. A couple hours later, a friend of mine named Mike Needleman came in, and he was one of those guys, I was your age. I was 40, and he was my age. Very astute, dressed guy, owned his own company, made a lot of money, and he said, Rick, Brian wasn't truthful with you. I said, what are you talking about? This is a guy that I'd known, and he said, I've bought the Indian of Dallas dealership, and we want what you have. We're going to open a bar and grill. We're going to do sales and service of Indians. We're going to work on Harleys. He said, Rick, we're not trying to take away from you. He said, notice how car dealers, they lump together. It brings more people there. And I said, I don't need you to help me bring people to Strokers. And he said, no, Rick, it's going to be this wonderful thing. And I said, okay, so what you're saying is it going to be me against you? No, Rick, that's not what I'm saying at all. And I said, okay, what I'm saying is it's going to be me against you. You're going to try to take what I have. Yeah. He said, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And they tried. They tried to they did. They opened up a bar and grill. They hired some of my mechanics away from me. And I remember I stopped by there, because I go to work in the middle of the night. Yeah. I stopped by there and I looked in the window, and there was a Strokers Dallas shirt in the window with a circle around the Strokers Dallas and a line through it. So I called Needleman the next day, and he said, oh, I'm sorry, Rick, that's those mechanics that used to work for you. 6 months goes by, and he calls me, and he said, can I come see you? And I said, sure. He came down, and he said, I told you I was going into business against you. I'm here to tell you that you won. We're out.
6 months.
He said, 6 months.
Wow.
He said, I can't make a living. It was probably a year. He said, I can't make a living doing it. I'm throwing my money away. I'm going to shut this thing down. I'm getting back out of the motorcycle business. Brian can just do rentals, but I'm done. And he said, do you want to buy any of the equipment or whatever? And I said, yeah, so I went over and I bought some. And he said, I don't want to lose you as a friend. I just thought that it would be something good. And I said, Mike, I get it. I get it. And he said, please don't have any hard feelings. And I said, no, Mike, I don't. I said, I get it. I know how tough this is. 2 weeks later, his son called me and said he shot himself.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have really went all in on that whole situation.
And that's what his son said was, Mike had never failed at anything he's ever done. And he failed on this, and he was taking some antidepressants, and, one thing led to another, and he ended his life, So it's just, I don't know, life is very short, and it's very precious, and I always say, do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Yeah. Being able to, stand up and, like I said, that a lot of people will see success from on the other side of the window, right?
Right.
And they
think it's easy.
They think it's easy, but it's really it's a personality trait that I think that comes with your personality in that subject of what you're doing for a living that makes you successful, right? If you really have a passion for things, then you're gonna eat crumbs for years of your life, and then with the hope of one day maybe I'll make it, but if not, I'm still fed and I get to enjoy motorcycles all day long. So I think it's everybody that consumes motorcycles on a hobby level, right, especially if they have money, at some point in time they feel like they want to be more involved. And sometimes they get involved and it's good, but more often than not, people get involved and it's just not the same kind of return on investment that what they're usually used to.
Well, there's a lot of people that own shops and that don't ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
That they got into the deal for the buck.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Harley shops when I was a kid, in 20s and 30s. We would go to the different Harley shops, wherever you went, you would stop at the different Harley shops. Well, they were all individual and they were all different. Now they're all the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Harley.
Yeah.
Harley's my guy. People ask me, hey, you going to do the Indian deal? No, I'm a Harley guy.
Yeah.
but their stores are big, they're beautiful, they're nice, they're fancy, but they're corporate.
Yeah.
You know, so that's great for a lot of people, but it's not my deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I do a bike night with Maverick and Longhorn Harley Davidson,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, those two are different than a lot of the other Harley shops because they're not corporately owned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're owned by basically a father and a daughter own those two, and they do a great job over there, and they're always trying different things versus the big corporate Harley shops that are owned by, you know, there was a company called Ride Now.
Mm-hmm.
And Ride Now owned.
Are they gone now?
No, they're still
They're
there.
still around? Okay.
So they own a bunch of Harley shops and all that. Big company. And then a bigger company called Rumble On came in and bought out Ride Now. So now the big corporate store is owned by the bigger corporate.
Do they not have any kind of monopoly clauses with like some of the franchises?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, because it would seem like if you own too many dealerships, then you kind of like I think
Jace, it's all about the dollar.
Yeah,
it's all about the dollar, and the big corporate guys, they got people telling them how to, you know, the best way to capture that dollar. I don't got that. I got me and my wife and my daughters and my brother-in-law and my brother. That's all I got.
I think that, like, okay, go get you a new bike from whatever dealership, you know, that's cool. But I think that having brands like yourself and all the smaller, you know, air quotes, smaller, more personal type of shops is the place to kind of go, you know, your brick and mortar.
So.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
that's where you get culture from.
I think it is, because if you go into a lot of the Harley shops, they're all so similar that you're not gaining an experience there, I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the little custom shops, but the problem is the little custom shops, it's hard for them to make a living, you know, so there are not as many little custom shops around anymore.
I've had the pleasure of, you know, I work with a dealership that does pretty well and takes care of us, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of other dealerships across America, and the ones that I feel like have really tried to bring some of the culture into the dealership, like I guess you would call the street culture of motorcycling. Some of them are doing it, but there's a lot of them that you'll pass through in the middle of Kansas that seems like, you know, Harley gave them a pamphlet and they just, all right, what do we do in this situation? Bam. Right. What's this wall supposed to have? Bam. And
those are the people that are not passionate. Yeah. Those are the people that are corporate people or people that had money that thought they would buy a Harley dealership and have some fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's fine. There's nothing in the world wrong with that. Mm-hmm. That's just not the way that I go. You know, one of the things that I do, although I haven't done it lately since COVID, is I'm a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. So I've actually lectured at DePaul University twice, and I've lectured at TCU 3 times.
Nice.
And at TCU, they voted me in one year their favorite lecturer of the year, because people go in there to lecture to the students that want to own their own business. They're wearing suits and ties. Yeah. And I go in like this, and I tell them that there's not only different ways to climb a ladder. There's different ladders.
You're creating hipsters, is what you're doing.
Hipsters. I don't know if hipster's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, that's what we were talking about earlier. Remember, that's what the younger people are. So they're looking at you owning businesses, and they're like, oh, you know what? I can do this in Chuck's too.
Yeah, but I want them to own their own business, whatever their passion is.
Yeah.
You know, so I've lectured to companies too, trying to get the most out of people, you know, to inspire them. I do another, you know, on my In My Life, the 365 project. Yeah. I do a motivational minute. Another deal I do is Get Off the Couch. Yeah. Where I talk to people about, you know, what are you doing? You're sitting on the couch watching TV every day. You know, you're getting fat. You're getting lazy. Come on, you do something. You know, do something. You only have one life. And none of us are promised tomorrow. Yeah. You know, your dream's not going to come true sitting on the couch flipping through the TV channels.
Yep. One of the things I've been talking about recently with a lot of people is how, you know, being at 40 years old, if I could talk to a 20-year-old Jace, I would be like, just time plus effort equals results. So if you go into work, like say if you want to learn a skill like the paint or welding or any kind of art thing or anything that's skill, business is this, right? if you just do it every day, a little bit every day,
Right.
a month later, you're better. A year later, you're better. 2 years later, you're actually a professional almost.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a slow increment gain.
Well, it starts with one step.
Yeah.
It starts with one
Yeah.
step. You know, and that's the whole thing is you got to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get started, just you don't know where that road's going to lead. You know where you want to go, but you know there's a bunch of twists and turns on that road, and you don't know
Yeah.
if or when you're going to get there.
I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this as well, that, you know, once you get past that just start situation, you get in your head thinking like, oh, I kind of started. Where's all the glory and glam? And it's like, after you start, it's still a hard process because you're going to have those feelings of doubt, you know, 2 months into it. Like, man, is this worth my time? Is this stupid? Like you were saying about the 365 project. So it's like, you got to find a way to push through these roadblocks that are going to come. They come to all of us.
That's just life. And
Yeah.
that, you know, I get those same things, and I've been there almost 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just life. You know, there is no roadmap on how to get somewhere. You have to do it your way.
Yeah.
And everybody's way is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I couldn't do it your way. You can't do it my way. So
Yeah.
you do it your way.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, before we started, I was asking you some social media questions because you're younger than me and you're good on social media.
Yeah.
And I've been making a big push on social media because that's where it is. When I started, the biggest expense I had besides my rent was Yellow Pages. You remember
Yeah.
the Yellow Pages?
Yep.
I was paying $10,000 a month for an ad in the Yellow Pages. And now all that's free on the internet.
Yeah.
But there's you know, the internet's not just MySpace anymore, or not just Facebook. You remember MySpace?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had a great time on MySpace.
Is it still there?
No, it's not. But I mean, you understand, like MySpace was like a year after I got out of high school. So,
Right, so that was your deal.
yeah, dude.
I remember the girl that worked for me, she actually went to DePaul University, and MySpace was big, and she was telling me about something called Facebook, and I said, what is that? She said, it's the way that college kids communicate around the country.
Yeah.
You know, it's a college kids thing, and then, you know, it became
Everything. Yeah.
It became everything. But, you know, I was asking you about social media and how you do this, and you're telling me about the you know, the different avenues that you use, you know, so you're teaching me on some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's, I think that like what's happening on social media now, maybe a more current question is like for the last like 10 or 15 years, they've gotten us used to putting in the effort because the effort was rewarded with all the exposure you would get. Like you bust your ass on Instagram or Facebook for a while and you'll get 200,000 followers or whatever the case may be. And they'll see your posts, right? Well, now they've given us 10, 15 years of that more or less free advertising. They let us build up our following and now they want us to pay for it.
Right.
So it's like,
You mean like in boost posts and all that stuff?
And so they'll limit,
Sponsored ads.
they'll limit what the audience you've already accrued sees
Right.
and say, well, you know, if you want more of your audience to see your posts, like boost this post. And I'm like, man, like that's some snake shit to me, in my opinion. It's like it conditions you over the last 15 years to become better at creating content because you're growing and then
that's just life.
It
Jay.
is life, right?
Everything is that. Everything is that. You know, you're not going to get anything you want. You got to go out there and take it. You
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
go out there and work hard and earn it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
So
yeah.
you got to figure out, okay, the algorithms and all these different things. How do I get around that?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if I boost a post or I sponsor this ad. My buddy Richard Rawlings was telling me he spends $350,000 a month in sponsored ads.
wow, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of carved a. I haven't met the dude yet. I know you're friends with him, but you know, watching his rise, especially
Right.
from before he was on TV, and kind of knowing him around the scene of like custom cars and motorcycles, it's pretty fascinating to watch what he built. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he's incredible. He's incredible. He's nonstop. He's nonstop. He used to come into Strokers when I first opened. He was one of the first guys that came in, and he was just a young guy hanging out.
Yeah.
And he was always brash and full of baloney, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I'll be damned if he didn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he hasn't changed. He's
Yeah.
and he's a good guy, and he does a lot of stuff for charity that people don't know.
Yeah, you're not supposed to know that, right?
You're not supposed to know that stuff. But he's, you know, he had a successful TV show for 10 years, I think, 10 or 11 years. And, you know, he's got millions and millions of followers on social media, and he's making a living doing it. But he doesn't stop there. He's buying car collections, and he's, you know, and I'm not at liberty to say, but he's doing other things, some of it in the motorcycle world, that's, you know, stuff that keeps him going.
Yeah.
You know, he can't stop. He can't rest. He's got to keep going.
That's, I mean, I feel like I'm that way. As soon as I feel like I accomplished something or this thing's over that I just did,
right.
I don't know what it's like to just chill. It's like I always got to have another challenge or another obstacle to kind of.
Your challenge and your obstacle thing as you're doing is to build your podcast up and to, you know, to hopefully someday make a living just doing that.
Yeah.
Which will open more doors for you to do bigger things and you know, things like that. You know, we used to do a podcast years ago, and I had Jesse James on my show 3 times, I think, which was always a big deal. And you know, you have to build up to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I wished I would have kept that podcast going, but it was, you know, me and my buddy Joe T. Well, then he had a surprise baby at 55 years old, so that put an end to him coming over and doing the show with me once a week.
Oh man,
that killed me.
I feel for him. 55 years old, got a newborn running around the house.
Yep, and you know what? He's the happiest guy on the planet. He was
so
scared because he didn't have any kids.
Oh, he didn't?
He had no kids, and he was so scared. He didn't know what he was going to do, and he can't imagine his life without his son. His son is his world.
How old is his son now?
12.
12, nice. Yeah, because I remember back in the day, Joe T he was building the bike every year for Sturgis alongside you. And
he was with me he was my best friend. He was with me wherever I went. He helped me get Strokers started and the Ice House started, and, you know, we were constant companions. Then he married a younger woman and had a surprise baby, and that's the end of that deal. We still eat lunch every Friday together, and we still talk every couple of days.
Yeah, when I ran into you on the way back from Sturgis this year, I saw he was with you. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a while. Yeah, no, that's cool, man. So, you know, like, I guess back to the kind of the hamster thing, it's like, how's it been being a part of that, like, that group of individuals and friends and camaraderie, you know?
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible, you know, that you can pick up the phone and call Arlen Ness or Corey or Don Hotop before he passed away, or you know, Paul Yaffe and those guys, Jeff Zielinski from NAMS. You know, it's just it's a great group to be a part of, and we have a big our big industry thing is on Monday night, where we bring in the new hamsters, the Monday night of Sturgis, the first Monday night in Sturgis. And we bring in new hamsters, and we have a hamster-only meeting before that. Yeah. You know, and there's like 350 hamsters. Damn. And probably 300 of us are in Sturgis every year. So we get in the big ballroom before they open the doors to the women and the other people. And it's, you know, 300 guys in yellow shirts up there. And that's what's cool, because it's an hour's worth of, what the heck's going on with this, and why are you letting that, and this is BS over there. Yeah. You guys better not be doing that, you know, and that's a cool part, you know. So being part of that group, and the you know, we raise $300,000 or $400,000 in one night for the Black Hills charities up there. Nice. I mean, it's a very cool thing to be a part of. You know, and I've been a hamster for 25 years. Got in 99, so almost 25 years, and it's a big part of my life. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see you every year at Sturgis in different parts of the country. Yeah. I think that, like, for, you know, people that are not, like, in the motorcycle industry per se, like, they obviously see the yellow shirts, they see the hamster logo, but I think a lot of people just didn't really know, like, what is that? What's it? I mean, there used to be, like, urban legends about hamsters. You had to, like, you had to have $1 million. You had to build your bike and ride it to Sturgis and different things like that. And you know, some of the hamsters are very wealthy guys, and some of them aren't wealthy guys.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a mix of people with one common passion. We love custom motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know, and the guys that get in it, that you know, maybe they love custom motorcycles for a few years and then they're on to something else. Well, they're not a hamster for very long.
Yeah.
You know, when it's hard to get into the hamsters, it can be a 3-year or it can be a 10-year process to get in. You know,
yeah, because it's an invite, right?
It's an invite. Yeah, you got to be invited to be part of the hamsters. And once you're invited, then you have to go through that 3+ years of hanging out, making sure you get along with the guys and the guys get along with you, and you know, so it's a cool deal.
Yeah, and it makes sense to have the time, like the 3-year time, because of the turnover rate of people that come into motorcycles hot and heavy,
Right.
and then you know fizzle out because you know they weren't really passionate about it, or maybe they made a lot of bad decisions. You know what I mean? So those happen too, right?
Yeah, but you know, some of the biggest names in the industry are hamsters, and the hamsters were instrumental in the custom bike thing, and the way that you know the guys are doing the Dynas and stuff now. Well, the hamsters were doing that to FXRs 40 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, 30, 40 years ago. So it's I had these trading cards, and it's 2 cards front and back, and it's a bunch of custom bikes. Probably 60% of them are FXRs.
Yeah.
You know, that Arlenette style with a little bubble fairing on there, you know, and the little drag bars we used to call them. You know.
Well, that whole I think they call it more Pro Street look,
right?
But I've always just kind of coined it as the hamster FXR,
right? Yeah, and that's what you know, and that's similar to what my 82 looks like. It's set up that style.
The orange one, right? That has like the nest fairing on it. Yeah. So back in the day, we call them street fighters. It was kind of a street fighter look to it back then. No, I dig it, and in the FXR world, the 90s kind of ball mill style billet parts that Ness would put out have become like gold for the FXR community.
Are they really?
Yeah, like people are trying to source out original ones and piece together kits. So it's just like how like some of the West Coast choppers parts, like the original stuff, people would try to get their hands on those and repurpose them on now builds and stuff. So it's kind of cool that like these things that were taking place, which doesn't feel like that long ago, because you know, it's starting to become the thing that, like that people now are trying to rebuild again. You know,
and like you just said, to me, it doesn't seem like that long ago. But if you step back and you count the years, then it was that long ago.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a lot of the bald milled stuff on my FX, you know, my 82 FX, and that was kind of the cool style back then.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I'm glad that style's coming back. I have a few more. I'm a sucker for the FXR, so I don't even know.
Did you finish that 4-banger yet, that 4-cylinder one?
No.
Where's it at? You hiding it in the shop now or what?
Yeah, it's in the shop. I just put a new cover over it a couple of days ago.
You had to replace the cover?
Yeah, it was all dusty.
Oh man, I remember seeing that one in the shop, and what do they call that motor in that thing?
V-Quad.
V-Quad, that's
so
right.
So the guy that built the V-Quad motor, he built, I think,
it's only a handful of them, right?
9 or 10, and he lived at that time in Northern California, where my biological dad lived. So he built his very first one on an FXR, and he built it. And he got the plans to build these other ones, but he needed the money, so he sold that very first FXR V-Quad to my dad. And then he built an Electroglide. He built a Bagger FXR, a Bagger V-Quad. Then he needed the money to source some more parts and all that, so my dad bought that too. So those very first 2 V-Quads he ever did out of Evo Motors, I have both of them.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, so he built one, and I think he built one for Orange County Choppers. They did for Intel or somebody, one of the computer companies. And then the very last one he ever did is up at Strokers. I've had it up there for sale and nobody's bought it, so I'm shipping it back to him probably in the next week or two. He lives in Arizona now. But the very first 2 V-Quads that he ever did, I own them.
That's cool.
One's that FXR, and the other one is that Electric Glide. Yeah.
Nice.
Some of the bagger guys that have come and gone, those guys kind of come and go. One of the guys offered me a bunch of money for that V-Quad bagger 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I wouldn't sell it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the popular trends of motorcycles, right? You can attest to this. Is like, I think the first real big popular nationwide sweep was the biker build-off stuff that took place in that style of bike, right? All the doctors and lawyers and big companies doing these,
Right.
the bikes, just the write-offs, basically what they ended up becoming, huh?
That's it.
But then that's going to attract a lot of people that see that there's a way to make money doing this stuff, and so it's going to bring in a lot of like unpassionate people to try to capitalize off of the hype and the
And that's what's happened over the years, and a lot of those guys now are gone.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that came in the 90s and the early 2000s, chasing that buck, are now chasing a buck somewhere else.
Yeah, I watched it happen in the big wheel bagger era. A lot of people, and I've always said this is like, I don't think there's anything wrong if that bike inspired you to get on a bike and start riding, but hopefully you love riding more than just this individual thing on a bike, right?
To me, the big wheel baggers it's not my thing. I think that they're cool, and, there's people that's got them into riding because they think they're so cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully it leads to other things too.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like that big wheel bagger world, that the people in that world are not as cohesive as we used to be. Back in the 90s and the 2000s, you could pick up the phone and have a good relationship with Matt Hotch or Paul Yaffe or Russell Mitchell or Randy Simpson or those guys. But now it seems like those guys pit themselves against each other. Well, they're not. It shouldn't be against each other. We're all in the same deal. Yeah. Sometimes I think the industry has passed me by, but I still enjoy what I'm doing, and we're still building a couple of bikes a year, and we're still customizing some cool stuff. I had a guy come in the other day and bring me an old panhead that he found, and wrote me a big check and said, "No hurry, just let's do something cool with this thing." Well, that's the kind of stuff I like there.
Well, I think with your position is that you got the chance, you got an opportunity to ride the waves, no matter where the industry goes.
Yeah.
What you have is going to kind of ride that wave. Now, obviously, you still want to find a way to keep people in your bar, keep people in your store, things like that. But I think it's just like my generation's job to make sure that we always pay homage to the ones before us, to make sure that people understand that, like, we're kind of in a position to do custom motorcycles because of a guy like Arlen Ness and his friends, and then you guys, and then the guys as recent as 10 years ago. Like, it's just progression of.
But it's the same way from us. We paid homage to Arlen Ness and to Sugar Bear and to those guys, to Pat Kennedy, and now I'm friends with those guys.
Yeah, and same thing.
Now that I'm part of their circle, which is a cool thing, and I love it to see people get into the industry or people get into bikes when they're passionate about it. Mm-hmm. I've got a guy working for me that used to work for me at Glidden Paint. And he's passionate about motorcycles, and he lives a freaking hour from Strokers, and he comes in every day, and he can't wait to get there so he can work on bikes and feed his passion.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of people I like.
Yeah, because it becomes contagious, right?
Yeah. So where does the industry go from here?
The industry, I think that as far as the industry is concerned, I mean, right now we got to see how this election goes. We got to see how a lot of that goes.
Yeah, but
right
you
now.
know what? There's an election every 4 years.
Yeah,
and it's going to change. It's going to change. Everything
and
changes.
Not saying like politically like one thing or another. I'm just saying like what the election I think is going to do with how much angst is in the air, if you will. Right. It's just making people like not spend a lot of money right now. A lot of my friends have online stores. They've seen a decline in a lot of the money that's being spent. I think that right now it's just like we're going to go into like a period where some of the people that are like not passionate or they're not very structured, I think they're going to have a hard time next year.
Well, whenever there's an election year, it's always, the economy always tightens up because they don't know, they don't know what's going to happen. So, to ride the wave, you got to ride that wave. You got to be able to, and that's the cool thing about a bar is when the economy's good, everybody's laughing and drinking Jack and Coke and Fireball, and when the times are tough, they're drinking Miller Lite.
Yeah.
They're drinking beer, but they're always going to drink.
Yeah.
They're going to drink something. So that's the cool thing about a bar is people are always gonna want to hang out in a bar.
As far as like the more broader scale of the industry and like where the trends are going and things like that, it's obviously there's a good staple with like air quotes performance oriented style motorcycling and keeping it more rideable, keeping it more this, but I think that that's going to be the main consumer bike. It's been the main consumer thing that people are doing. But I think some people are going to start branching off and wanting to try more custom things, buy some more basket cases. Maybe you go find these old Iron Horses and Big Dogs that are on Facebook Marketplace right now and buy those and kind of re-customize those things. Wow. I think that, and obviously Harley's tapping into other markets like the Pan America stuff, and I think that's going to open doors. But man, it's really tough to say where the industry's going to go. I mean, right now, I feel like I've had my finger on the pulse pretty well for the last 5, 6, 7 years, but now it's kind of like I don't think it's going to go away. This shit's not going to just not be here tomorrow. Like, performance baggers are only going to continue to kind of grow, but at what point does it kind of like start becoming the back end of the chopper scene where it's a bunch of yuppies out there not really caring about bikes anymore, just trying to capitalize, or the back end of the big wheel bagger scene and things like that? Like, when does it transition into that,
It's the industry is a constant transition.
Yeah.
It's ups and downs, and you just have to ride that wave. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. The smart guys are like Yaffe that are making parts for stock Harley Davidsons.
Yeah.
Because people are always going to buy stock Harleys, and they're always going to want new, cool parts to put on there. And that's where Arlen Ness has made his money for all these years. You know? So I don't know. As long as people keep buying Harleys, then there'll be stuff for me and you to do.
Yeah.
That'll keep us going.
Yeah, we got to keep and we got to keep gas in those bikes too.
Got to keep gas in
as
those
long
bikes
as that
too.
happens.
Yeah, and the electric thing hopefully doesn't.
I don't mind it coming around. I just don't want it to be the only option.
I don't mind it coming around, but it's not my deal. Yeah. And the electric bikes are cool. Victory had one, and I rode it. We did a test ride on the Victory motorcycles in Las Vegas. And I was riding one down the side street, and a guy was out front watering his yard, and he said, "Hey, honey, look at this motorcycle going by." And I could hear it.
Yeah.
As I'm going by at 30 miles an hour, I could hear the guy in his front yard talking to his wife because it makes no sound.
Yeah, that's weird.
It was weird. There's
certain things that I just don't think I can have without, like, a motorcycle, and the sound is part of the experience. The same way driving an old 67 Camaro is the sound. It's
right.
it's the vibration of it,
right?
That I think that maybe younger generations are going to lose connection to.
I hope not. I hope I hope the thing keeps going and starts ramping back up again. Since the economy got tight in 2007 and 8, and Big Dog and Iron Horse and Bourget and Big Bear Choppers and all those guys went away, and I thought, well, this is only going to last a few years. Well, now it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's no sign of returning to where it was.
Yeah.
But, in cycles, it will return. Probably not in my lifetime, but maybe in yours.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe in yours.
Yeah. I'm welcome to any kind of change. I've found that, like, sometimes change is welcome. Like, I like it. I like the fact that something else makes me have to relearn how to stay relevant. You know what I mean?
Right. That's the whole point, is to stay relevant. But it's to follow your passion.
Yeah.
Follow your passion.
Yeah, and that's one of those weird things, right? Staying relevant, because, you know, when certain people hear that maybe don't work in this world the same way you do or I do, they don't understand how important it is to stay relevant in this. It's like, you know, everything that you want to offer to sell, that how you make your money is about the relevancy that you have as a brand or as an individual within the world. You know, opportunities come to relevant people, you know.
It would be, you know, what would your life be if you were just painting helmets and painting a few bikes and, you know, you didn't do this.
Oh, it'd probably be easier.
It would be easier, but you wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
You wanted to challenge yourself to do some other things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you've done it. You've built a big name in the industry, and just keep doing what you're doing and following your passion. It will lead you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm seeing it happen this last year, and I feel like it's gonna just grow, and I'm just trying to stay the course, you know, and make this podcast better. You know, I'm glad that we got to do this podcast now, because I feel like it can really, it's at a level where it can just shine better for you as like your story, you know.
Well, I think, you know, my daughter was telling me that this morning is, you know, this podcast will open me up and introduce me to a younger audience or a different audience than what I normally have, you know, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And honestly, your presence will bring an older audience or just another audience that I don't have. And that's how the mutual relationship of like growing and collaborating together works.
Absolutely.
You know
so you'll have to show me how to, and my IT guy's my brother-in-law, so he knows all this, but somehow once you get the show up, I'll link, you know, my social media to it. And and
I'll link it in the description, so it's actually like if people click on it, they'll be able to go to your YouTube and your website and your Facebook and all that stuff. So
good.
Well, we did good. What did we do, 2.5?
220.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
I feel pretty good. I feel like I learned something.
I did too. I learned some things too, you know, and it's fun to talk to, you know, you're my kid's age.
Yeah.
You know, so it's younger. It's cool to talk to the younger people because y'all have a different outlook than we had, but it's also cool to share some of the things that we've learned over the years with the younger generation.
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, for me as a guy that I always say I'm a lifer in this motorcycle industry in some form or fashion. So, you know, the more I can learn from the past and the more aware I can be of like the similarities in the future of how things might kind of pan out. Like I want to know those things. Yeah. You know, and I'm in a pretty fortunate spot to be able to sit here and absorb knowledge from guys like you from all over the country. Good. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, it's a cool deal, and you're doing a good job, and I'm proud that you had me on your show.
Oh, dude, thank you. Appreciate it, Rick.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
See you, pal.